So hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS. I hope you all are doing great, and this is your ongoing lecture series, the high yielding topics. I am specifically focusing on modern Indian history, and as you must be aware that the section from which the modern history questions are now are asked are too precise. Sometimes they go into subaltern side of the historical analysis, sometimes they specifically focus on people to people history, and so we knew and we thought like, okay, we'll talk about the enactment, judicial policies, civil services, and all those things in which the common people were going to impacted. And so commission and committees were also playing a very vital role. And so I think that you must have been seen the previous two lectures also of the commission and committees, and this one will further help you, because in this time we are going to talk about the civil services related commissions and committees and judicial services or judicial system, judiciary as an institution, how it evolved, the commission and committees which played a vital role. That is what we are going to discuss in this lecture. So let's begin, okay, our lecture for today. Okay, before moving forward, let me also tell you that Sunya IAS has brought for you this crash course oriented towards a preliminary 2022-3 examination. If you are preparing and you are serious about your preparation, if you are still confused a bit because time bahut kam hai, so make sure that you subscribe to the course, you take the help of the course, the video lectures, as well as the text content, which is a crisp notes which are focusing, targeting only on the preliminary examination 2023. So make sure to use it in the most apt manner. The link for all this is in down here in the description, so you can pick the details from there. Okay, let's move forward. Let's start with our lecture for today, that is committees, civil services and judiciary we are going to focus upon. Now the first one, the one which we have written here, is called as the Indian Civil Services Committee 1886. Indian Civil Services Committee is 1886. Now what is so specific about this committee, why we are going to talk about it in detail, is because it is the Indian Civil Services Committee 1886 was established by Lord Dufferin, who came in 1880, who was also there at the time of Congress and formation and all that. But this committee is also very famously called as Hutchinson Commission. Okay, why it is so famous, what it specifically has done? So for this you need to go through a bit back, almost a decade back from 1886 also. In 1876 we have a very interesting viceroy. His name was Lord Lytton, and Lytton was very upset. Lytton was very upset because he saw that a lot of Indian people, Indian native people, were getting interested and subsequently obviously passing the civil service examination. Even though the examination has paper like Latin, Greek, Arabic, Sanskrit, all that, and the exams were only conducted in London, but still a lot of Indians were cracking the exam. How they were cracking the exam? They were cracking the exam because from the age of 15, 16, the newly intelligentsia of Deccan and Bengal started sending their wards to London. The students used to stay there. जैसे अभी आप लोग आते हैं, दिल्ली आके पढ़ते हैं, पुणे जाके पढ़ते हैं, बैंगलोर, हैदराबाद, from all the tier 2, tier 3 cities, you move to tier 1 cities and metropolitans to study for your upcoming examination of all the vivid things, whether you are preparing for UPSC or NEET or IIT or what else. In a similar manner, students used to go to London back in the day. Right now, as we have the coaching institutes, back then this type of institutions were called as a crammer. And all your material, everything used to be crammed up in a small course, syllabized course, and pupil, the wards, were reading these things. Now the problem was, which was a problem for Lytton in 1876, was this fact that he said that Indian students are more determined and they are landing up in London by the age of 18 or 19. So if the age, the maximum barrier age is 23, a lot of Indian students are not only coming to London, they are reading, writing all the different examination, and by the age of 21 or 22 they are easily cracking the examination. A lot of them were cracking at the age of 21 itself. Now Lytton saw this as something which was against the British people, as per him. So he thought that, okay, the British wards, the British students are not even knowing about the opportunities they could have in India. They are only getting to know about it when they are 19 or 20 or something like that. and then they are not able to compete with Indian students. So what he did, he reduced the maximum age to which one can apply for the examination, and he reduced it not to 21, he reduced it to 19. Okay, and that was an absurdity, because now if you can't really send a 12-year-old kid to London. You have to be at least 16 or 17-year-old when you leave, or basically 15 or 16. After 10th standard, Indian students used to move. Now he knew very well that after 10th standard, if they are coming to London, within 3.5 years, they won't be able to crack the examination. If they will getting the time period of 5 years, they will, but in 3.5 years, they won't be. So that is what he did. That was the main reason why he came up with this idea. Now he did one more important thing. He brought the statutory civil services. Now what is statutory civil services? So Lytton said that there are a lot of people who are associated with princely states, princely families. Suppose the princely families already, like princely states already had a prince, but the prince was of no use. They were just the de jure monarch. De facto rule was in hands of Britishers only. But at least the de jure monarch was there. But what about the cousin of the de jure monarch? He doesn't have an office. He belonged to a princely family. He surely has a lot of wealth. He mostly have a palace also to live, but he doesn't have a job. So how much time it's going to take before someone with a lot of money without a job will start revolting against the government? Obviously they will. Okay, so he thought that if these kind of people are given job, and they will be very easy, they'll be preferring to become a bureaucrat. But at the end of the day, so many princely states ruler after 1947 also what they did, they became ambassador of India to various countries, something of an which is a job which is a senior level IFS does. Okay, so he thought that all these people or their children and their cousins and all these princely state or princely families can be consumed in the civil services. It will serve two purposes. First of all, the princely states and the people of the princely families, since they will have a job from the British government side, they won't be getting involved in other activities. They won't be going against us. The second thing is, since their job will be because of the Britishers, they will further strengthen the foundation of the Britishers. They will further strengthen the foundation of the Britishers. So he brought the statutory civil services. Now, this is something which was highly opposed by Indian scholars or Indian leaders. It is said that one of the major reasons for the formation of the Indian National Congress was to oppose the reduction in age as well as the formation of the statutory civil services. Now what happened after this? In 1886 you will see Atchison Commission was made, and this is the very commission we are talking about, Indian Civil Services Committee 1886, which is also called as Atchison Committee. Now Atchison Committee, what recommendation it gave? First of all, it rejected the statutory civil services. Now why it rejected the statutory civil services, that is also something you should know. So it rejected the statutory civil services for one specific purpose. What is the specific purpose? That specific purpose is this thing, that in the Charter Act of 1833 itself, the British Parliament has stated that in the work of appointment into the services, the government or the East India Company, which later on became the British Indian government, will not discriminate on the basis of place of birth, okay, or race, okay, or your background basically. Now basically that was the affirmation of the concept of meritocracy in the civil services. Now if you are going to take people just because they are son and daughters of someone, okay, then obviously this rule is going to be broken. Okay, so that is something, on that ground Atchison Committee recommended that statutory civil services has to be rejected out. That's not the way forward. And the second thing it did, it increased the age back to 23. So that is also something which they did, and that is why you should remember this. Okay, Indian Civil Services Committee 1886 or Atchison Committee. Now the next important committee is Indian Public Services Inquiry Committee 1912. Now what purpose they serve? Now the main agenda was to improve, to inquire into the Indian civil services, public services system, and to suggest measures for improvement. That is the official mandate. Okay, Now, when it is saying that improvement in Indian civil services, it means that Indian public services, it means training facilities for the public servants have to be established. Acha, Hutchinson Commission had one more thing. It also established the provincial civil services. We forgot to discuss that point in last film. It also discussed for the provincial services. Okay. It discussed the provincial services, the formation of the provincial services also. So keep that thing in mind. Now, Indian Public Services Inquiry Committee 1912, they were focusing on what all needs to be done for improving the situation of civil services, for making the environment more conducive for the civil servants to work. Now, you will see after this only, after 1919, obviously the Indians were given more easily appointments on the senior position. Some people say it is because of the war effect, but others also say that it was also something which was a recommendation of this committee. So that is why you need to remember it. Now after this you will see the came Islington Committee or Lee Commission. Lee Commission actually came first, 1923. So we'll first discuss the Lee Commission and then we'll move on something else. So Lee Commission at the time of Lord Reading came in, and Lee Commission's main agenda was to give a salary structure, or basically salary need to be restructured. After the First World War, it was required that Government of India Act 1919 came in, and Government of India Act 1919 was passed by the British Parliament, and they told the British Indian government that you restructure and reduce the salaries of Indian senior civil servants. This is also something which was mentioned by Dadabhai Nehruji and other people in front of Welby Commission in 1895, that the senior British civil servants who are serving in India are paid extensively. That should not be the case. आप अभी भी देखोगे in 21st century, actually the salaries of the civil servants are lesser than what the kind of work they perform, and that is because an impact of this only. So you will see that Lee Commission's main work was to restructure the salaries, although salaries were not reduced that much, okay, and whatever the salaries were reduced at that time for the British officials serving in India, it was made up, the makeup was done by giving them more perks, material perks. Now, you will see here the formation of Central Public Service Commission was recommended for the first time, okay. It was also decided that more greater representation to the Indian people have to be given in it. So that was also done, okay. First, it was also the first Indian Statutory Commission, so that you should keep in mind, okay. Now let's move forward and let's talk about Islington Commission of 1924. The Lee Commission is also many a time was called as the Imperial Commission. Islington Commission, you will see, they examined the working of Indian civil services. That was for the restructuring in the salary and all those things, and it was also basically recruitment in the higher position. The promotion and all was suggested or discussed by Islington Commission, okay. Improved training was also a cause. You will see that on the recommendation on the Lee Commission and subsequently the Islington Commission, in 1926 a new body was formed. In 1926 a new body was formed, and what this new body in 1926 was? 1926 the new body was formed, and that was Public Service Commission was established in India. You remember the Public Service Commission was established in Britain or UK in 1854 itself. In India, the Public Service Commission was established in 1926. This Public Service Commission then in 1937-38 was evolved into Federal Public Service Commission, and after 1947 that Service Commission then evolved into the Union Public Service Commission, okay. So Islington Commission is required with that perspective, fine. After this, the next one is the Butler Committee of 1927. Now don't get confused with the Butler Committee of 1928, whose agenda was looking into the center and state relations. That was another body. This Butler Committee was formed in 1927, and again the agenda was improvement in the working conditions of the Indian officials in the civil services. Now their agenda was not only about the superior services, but they were focusing, look, even a grade 4 official of the government of India or the provincial government is a civil servant. You also have to improve their working conditions, and that was the mandate of the Butler Committee. Okay, so that is the work they did. They also recommended that how in the princely states the civil servants should be treated, but obviously it was not mandatory, but it was most of a recommendatory idea. Okay, in this also no Indian no Indian leaders were never consulted, so you keep that thing in mind. Some of the commissions and recommendations civil services by these only, you should remember this. If you are just interested, let me tell you a few more things about the Indian civil services and how it evolved. So for the first time, the civil services examination was conducted in India in the Indian city of Allahabad. You will see, prior to Delhi, the center hub of civil service examination preparation post 1947 was Allahabad. The reason is this only because the first time the examination was conducted in India, it was conducted in the city of Allahabad back in 1912. That also is something you should keep in mind. Another important thing about the civil services and how it evolved is, you will see that although this is true that the first civil servant who was got into the service was 1864, Satyendranath Tagore. It was the elder brother of Rabindranath Tagore and the son of Debendranath Tagore. But for the next few years there was a total lull, and then 4 more candidates got into the services, and in 1869. Okay, and these were no small people. R.C. Dutt, okay, then Satyendranath Surendranath Banerjee, okay, then the third one was Bihari Lal Gupta. All these are important characters. Okay, so Babaji Thombe, the fourth one. So all these are very important people who played very vital role in later on in history. Now subsequently you will see that by 1930-35 onwards, the interest of the British people in the getting recruited in Indian civil services started reducing, because the world kind of got a bit more globalized and the Britishers were more interested into going to the American land. Okay, that London-New York relationship had evolved, and you will see by 1935 onwards, majority of the people who are getting recommended for the services by this newly formed Federal Public Service Commission were Indians only. And by 1943-44, actually more than 95% of the people who were recruited were native Indians only. And so you will see in 1947, when India got independence, Pakistan got independence, then there was a overarching majority of Indian civil servants, even on the senior most positions, who are controlling the order of the day on both sides of the borders. Okay, and that's why you will see that switching of power between the British leadership and Indian leadership didn't create much of a chaos on the ground. Partition chaos is a different thing, there is a different reasoning, but administrative chaos never came, neither in India nor in Pakistan. So that is because of that. So you should keep that thing in mind. Let's move forward. Yeah, this is done. Indian Law Commission, we will discuss 1834. So as I was telling you, we will start now the judicial reforms body which were ever formed. So the first one was Indian Law Commission. You might have heard about that. Law commissions are still going on. 235, 240, 242 law commission has been going on. So the first law commission was formed in 1834, and it was formed on the direction of the Charter Act in 1833. So Charter Act of 1833 recommended that a law member should be appointed in the in-council of the Governor General, because the whole system needs to have a someone who has not only the judicial authority of the Supreme Court, but also have the societal perspective. So a law member should be appointed. You will see the first law member who came to India was Thomas Macaulay. He was the one who led the first law commission. The first law commission went on to write the whole CRPC and IPC, which is implemented even now. Although they framed it immediately, but it was implemented only in 1870 and 1880s, subsequently in the aftermath of revolt of 1857. Fine. So that is something you should know, that the law commission played a very important role. Okay. Now, after this, the Royal Commission on Superior Services in India, no, that is done. Indian High Courts Act and Indian High Courts Act Commission 1879. Now, this is again something important, very important. Lord Lytton, the infamous Lord Lytton, was there in power, and the High Courts in Calcutta, High Court in Calcutta was overburdened. Okay, and therefore it was decided that other states, other regions also need high courts, higher judiciary body. And so you will see that High Court's jurisdiction was also expanded in certain cases. Okay, a lot of area was taken over at different areas. Okay, those area was giving the judicial authority under the High Courts, as well as the new High Courts were also recommended to be made. Okay, the whole office of the registrar in the High Court was also introduced for the first time. Now another law commission, and this was again famously called as the second law commission, was established in 1885 during the time of Lord Dufferin. The main agenda mandate was to suggest improvement in the working of Indian higher judiciary. Okay, but what specifically the recommended pointers were: codification of the Indian law and reformation of the judicial system. Okay, these recommendations were never really implemented, not even till today. You should remember this thing. Now this is actually a problem Indian judicial system has, that the judicial body has got even lesser of reformation than the policing system. That's a reality. But questioning the judiciary is always tidbit difficult. No one really wants to do it, and that is why it is so. Indian Statutory Commission 1930. Okay, 1930, to review the functioning of the Government of India Act 1990. It was made. Okay, and this is basically also known as the Simon Commission, this body, and they also had the mandate to suggest that what needs to be brought changes on the judicial level. So obviously they recommended the changes on the judicial level in the Government of India Act 1935, where they recommended formation of a Supreme Court. Okay, Federal Supreme Court, which was also mandated to be made, but since the federation was never formed, so how the Supreme Court was going to be formed? Although the Chief Justice also came here, Chief Justice also started working here, but he never was able to be got the name of the Chief Justice of the Federal Court of India, because the Federal Court was never able to work as say. Fine. So that you have to remember, and that body already only then went on to evolve into the Supreme Court of India in 1950. So keep that thing also in mind. And while making this body, you will see that many Indian scholars, actually, because this is 1930s, and in 1930s you will see that many Indian leaders, for example Tej Bahadur Sapru, the leader of the Liberal Party, was very active, so his opinion was taken. M.R. Jaikar's opinion was also taken. Okay, M.R. Jaikar was from Hindu Mahasabha, so their opinion was taken in the formation of in the recommendations of this body, that is Statutory Commission, or basically the Simon Commission. Fine. So keep these things in mind. These are the judicial bodies, and before this we just discussed the organization, or basically the committees and the commission whose recommendation evolved the civil services in India in the form which it is today. So keep these things in mind. Let's catch up in the next lecture, and we'll start from there. That is the other section, which is the other committees and commission who are focusing on nationalist struggle, that we'll be doing in next lecture. Thank you for now, and have a nice day.